Your chart, it says here, shows great interest. If you're not already in or intending to enter a human services career, you certainly should move in that direction. You would be very successful in such a profession. So what he's telling them is, if you're in a personal service career now, that's fine. If you're not, you should get in there. Of course. It's got to fit everybody all over again. And it says, oh, you'll love this. Your personal sexual adjustment has presented some problems for you. Everybody related to that. While you have some personality weaknesses, you are generally able to compensate for them, and you have a great deal of unused capacity that you have not turned to your advantage. People often talk about you, but you don't care. This is something that suits everybody. And then one fellow told me at the end, he said, I don't care what you read, I still believe my horoscope is correct. Of course you can. Now, I'm a reasonable guy. I'm a reasonable person. I try to be very honest with people. Now, mind you, I'm a magician, so I fool people. I lie to them. I get on a stage, I tell them I'm going to do all kinds of wonderful things, but I never try to convince them that I really have psychic or magical powers. To do that would be misleading them. It would be lying to them. I told you about the astrology experiment, but I've just done another experiment. As you noticed, I took a double dose, fatal dose of homeopathy pills. I'm not sleepy at all. Now, how many here really think they know about homeopathy? Well, some people will say, yes, I think I know about homeopathy. But let me tell you more about it. Homeopathy started 200 years ago. More than 200 years ago in Switzerland by a fellow named Hahnemann. And Hahnemann worked up the rules of homeopathy, and they are strange when you really understand what it's all about. Now, many people think that it's herbal in some way. No, it has nothing to do with that sort of thing. What they do is, and I'll step over to the chart here, what they do in preparing homeopathic medicines is weird, to say the least. Now, here we have the mathematics lesson here, ladies and gentlemen. Mathematics lesson says that 10 to the power of 1 is 10. In other words, the index here shows the number of zeros after the 1. Okay, we all know that. So 10 squared, or 10 to the second power, is 100, 2 zeros, you see. 10 cubed is 1 with 3 zeros. Now, what they do is they take some sort of substance. It can be anything. It can be honey. It can be arsenic. It can be anything you want. Anything that they want to prescribe to you. They take one part of that and they put it in 10 parts of water, and then they do what's called successing. I call it shaking, but they call it successing. They do it 10 times this way, and 10 times this way, and 10 times this way. That's satisfying. Now that's a one solution. That would be called 1 part in 10, you see. Okay. Then they take 1 part of that solution and they put it in 10 parts of water. And again, here's a picture which has been 10 times in all 3 directions. That becomes a 2 solution. In other words, 1 part in 100, 1%. And they do it again and again and again and again, and soon they reach a point called Avogadro's limit. Now, that's not a familiar name to everybody. Avogadro was a fellow who worked in physics and in chemistry many years ago, and he was a very awkward man, very difficult man. He came up with Avogadro's limit. And he said if you repeat that process 23 times, you will have a solution which only has a chance of there being 1 molecule or 1 atom of the original substance present. You go to 10 to the 24th, and you've got 1 chance in 10 of there being 1 molecule there. Oh, but the homeopaths, they use dilutions, and you can read it right on the package. They use dilutions all the way up to 10 to the power of 1,500. Now, one of the most popular medicines in medicine, I use the term loosely, of course, in homeopathy is bacillococcium. This is made from duck livers. Why duck livers, I have no idea. And the ducks don't like it very much either. But I will relieve you of any bad feeling about how you're being cruel to ducks. No, they only really have to use one duck liver. Now, a duck liver is about that size. It's small. One duck liver would make enough medicine at the dilution that they have for this flu remedy, which is supposed to cure the symptoms of flu. Not the flu itself, just the symptoms. But it's very, very popular, and it's a very expensive medicine that you can get in any pharmacy anywhere in this country. One duck liver would be enough of the original substance to make pills which would fill a sphere the size of the solar system with the sun at the center and the orbit of Pluto at the outside of it. Pluto used to be a planet, you may remember that. And then a little bit more than that. Now that's an awful lot of pills. I don't know where you'd store them. You have to take them to another solar system someplace just to store them. But that's how little of the duck liver is there. In other words, there's none of it there whatsoever. Now, years ago, I called my friend Martin Gardner, who just died recently at the age of 95, wonderful gentleman. He was a mathematician. I said, Martin, I'm trying to get across to my audiences how dilute these medicines are. And I told him I had some sleeping pills with me. And I said, now, the active ingredient in those sleeping pills, as it was in the sleeping pills that I just ate, the active ingredient in a pill that helps you sleep is caffeine. Caffeine should do exactly the opposite. If it was really there, it would do exactly the opposite. But the active ingredient is caffeine. I said, Martin, how many of those pills would I have to eat to make sure that I got at least one molecule of caffeine? He said, I'll call you back. And he called me back about half an hour later. He said, I hope you're seated at the telephone because you're going to fall down when you hear this. He said, Randy, you would have to eat 16 swimming pools full of those pills in order to be pretty sure that you'd get one molecule of caffeine someplace along the line. Now, I ask you to picture that experiment. It's not a pretty picture. I'm in a bathing suit. That is not a pretty picture. Not any longer at the age of 82. And I dive into the first swimming pool and eat up all the pills that fill the swimming pool to the top. And at the end of this, they say, do you feel sleepy? No, not yet. And somehow they get me out of the pool full of these sleeping pills and put me in the second swimming pool. And I've got to do that 16 times. Not a pretty picture. Not at all. So that's how ridiculous the whole thing of homeopathy is. And the bottom line in homeopathy is we have tested it endless times. It does not work. Now, let me explain something about that. You have tens of thousands in every city of satisfied customers who have taken homeopathic medicines. They believe that they work. But it turns out that they're wrong. Because we have tested them clinically with the BBC in the United Kingdom and the cooperation of the Royal Society, which is the greatest scientist in the United Kingdom at this particular moment. They cooperated, they designed an experiment whereby we could test homeopathy. And we got a hold of the homeopaths of England, the select group of governing board there. We asked them to design a test, and they designed a test, and they conducted the test. All they had to do was tell the difference between ordinary tap water and homeopathic water. They did the test. I came over from America, not knowing what the results of the test were, prepared to give the $1 million prize to them if they won. The statistician put it all into the computer, click, click, click. 0. No results whatsoever. And immediately the homeopath said, oh, you did it wrong. I said, wait a minute. I didn't do it. You did it. You designed the protocol, you designed the experiment, you conducted the experiment, and now you're complaining because it didn't work? I had nothing to do with it. I wasn't even in the country at the time. I was back in Florida, across the ocean. They said, well, there was still something wrong with the test because we know that homeopathy works. Nonsense. It does not work. It has never worked. And in my estimation, it never will work because it has no substance in it whatsoever. Now, one thing to be said about homeopathy is, and they say it all the time, it's natural. Sure. Stones are natural. Bird shit is natural. I don't eat stones and I don't eat bird shit. Even though it's natural. What has natural got to do with it? Just means it's not artificial. Now, there is a medicine in the United States which has very big letters in the front, homeopathic. It's very expensive. And it contains zinc glutamate. That's what it's made with, you see. And it's very heavily diluted. It says it's called Zicam. And Zicam is very popular in the United States. And you know something? It works. Not psychologically, it actually physically works. But then you look at the list of ingredients on the back, and it's a 2% solution. It's not homeopathic like that at all. It's not homeopathic, but they label it homeopathic, so under the law, they can charge 70% more for it because it says homeopathic. Now this is criminal. And yet Zicam is sold as a medicine, and it does work. And people say, oh, I take Zicam, and that's a homeopathic medicine, so I believe in homeopathy. Really. But it's not a homeopathic medicine. It has a concentration of zinc glutamate in there that actually works on the symptoms. This is criminal. This really is criminal. Now, I have a carrot. You know the old stunt of making a donkey walk forward by putting a carrot on a string, on a stick in front of the donkey, and the donkey's always moving forward to try to eat the carrot. Well, this is the carrot that I offer. It's the $1 billion prize. It's been offered for more than 10 years now. And Swift, which is our web page, I ask you to go to Swift, and you'll keep up with the news of what's happening with our foundation. We get 9,000 hits a day internationally. That's very powerful. Very, very powerful. Well, one of the strange things about homeopathy, by the way, that I forgot to mention is the more dilute it is, the more powerful it is. What is this? The higher the figure gets, the less ingredient there is in it, the more powerful it is. As a matter of fact, we had a disaster in Florida not too long ago. A fellow died from an overdose because he forgot to take the medicine. If you get zero of it, it must be the most powerful dose of homeopathic medicine you can possibly take. Now, we tested it for the BBC, as I said, and with the Royal Society, and there were no results for homeopathy. So I think we can write that off. But it's still very popular because people spend a lot of money for it. Do you think they're really going to say, I was a real fool, I spent a lot of money for this medicine and it didn't work? No, they'd much rather prefer to say, oh, it works just fine for me. Yeah, it works fine, I'm feeling great. Now, there's another thing that I have to admit to you. The metric system is not used in the United States of America. We're still dealing with 1/16 of an inch and 12 inches in a foot and 3 feet in a yard and 1,760 yards in a mile. Come on, this is a ridiculous system. But